One quiet morning, a letter arrived at Downton Abbey. No one knew who sent it. But when the butler saw the old Crawley family crest stamped in red wax, his hands trembled. It wasn't just a letter, it was a warning. A ghost from the past had returned, and with it a secret powerful enough to destroy everything the Crawley family had built over generations. A scandal so dangerous it could rip the family apart. Forever. The sun rose gently over the hills of Yorkshire, casting warm light over the tall windows of Downton Abbey. Everything looked peaceful, almost too peaceful. Lady Mary sat at the breakfast table, flipping through a newspaper, unaware of the storm coming her way. Tom Branson poured himself a cup of tea, smiling as the children ran past the doors laughing. Downstairs, the kitchen buzzed as Mrs. Patmore prepared the morning's meal, and Daisy hurried with fresh bread. Everything seemed like a normal day. Then Carson, the retired but still proud butler, walked in holding a letter. His face was pale. "This came for you, my lady," he said, handing it to Mary. She looked at the seal, confused. "It looks like our family crest, but older. Strange." She opened it slowly, and as she read the words inside, her face changed. Her hands stiffened. Her eyes widened. It wasn't just a letter. It was a claim. Someone from outside, someone unknown, was demanding to speak with the Crawleys, claiming to have knowledge about a lost piece of family history. The words inside were short but clear. "You do not know the whole truth about your family. I will. Arrive soon. Prepare yourselves." Mary folded the letter and kept it hidden. She didn't tell Tom, not yet. Instead, she walked outside and stood on the stone steps, looking out at the quiet land. Her thoughts raced. What truth? What secret? Who was this person? And why now? In the drawing room later, the Dowager Countess, Violet Crawley, noticed her granddaughter's distracted eyes. She gave her a sharp look. "Is something troubling you, Mary?" Mary hesitated. "It's nothing yet, but it might become something very soon." Violet sipped her tea slowly. Then she said something strange, something that made Mary stop cold. "Some ghosts never rest, my dear. Not until the living pay for what was hidden." Downstairs, the staff noticed something was off. Mr. Bates whispered to Anna, "Did you see the way Lady Mary looked this morning?" Anna nodded. "Yes, like someone saw a shadow from the past." That evening, as the sun set behind the trees, Mary sat alone in her room, staring at the letter again. She didn't recognize the name signed at the bottom, but the last line was clear: "I am one of you, and I deserve the truth." The silence of the night settled over Downton Abbey, but inside those great stone walls, the first crack had formed. The Crawleys had no idea what was coming, but it had already begun. The next morning, Lady Mary locked her bedroom door and read the letter again, this time more carefully. It mentioned names she had never heard before. One line stood out like a knife. "I was born inside your walls, raised in silence and erased from history." That was not just a threat, it was a truth begging to be heard. Mary took the letter to her father, Lord Grantham. When he read it, his face lost all color. He sat down without saying a word. Then finally, in a slow, dry voice, he said, This could ruin everything." The family gathered in the drawing room. Edith arrived last, late as usual, but even she could feel something was wrong. "Mary, read the letter aloud." Edith gasped at the words. Tom looked stunned. Violet didn't flinch. She simply leaned forward and said, "And now the skeleton comes knocking." The letter claimed that a child had been born from an affair during the Great War, possibly from someone in the Crawley family, and a servant who vanished without a trace. That child, now an adult, believed they were a true heir to the estate by blood. Panic stirred in Robert's voice. "We cannot let this go public. If the press gets hold of this, Downton's reputation, our name, our land, all of it could fall." But Tom Branson, the most level-headed of the family, wasn't so quick to dismiss the claim. "What if it's true?" he asked quietly. "What if someone out there really is a Crawley?" Cora looked deeply troubled. "Even if it is, what does that mean? Do we invite them in? Test them? Hand them keys to Downton?" And that was the next blow. The letter requested a DNA test. Proof, not gossip, not emotion, cold truth. It would settle everything. Upstairs, Mary felt torn. Protecting Downton had always been her mission. But this was not a scandal she could bury. There was a living person out there, raised in shadows, possibly carrying the same blood that ran through her veins. Meanwhile, downstairs, the servants were buzzing. Thomas Barrow had overheard a few words while serving tea. In the servants' hall, he whispered to the others, "There's talk of a bastard Crawley ... a hidden child." Some dismissed it as nonsense, but Anna looked uneasy. Things like this don't stay hidden forever. Outside the estate gates, a dark car rolled. To a stop, a man stepped out. He carried nothing but a small suitcase and an old photo. It was worn, but the face on it was clear. It was a young woman in a maid's dress, standing beside Lord Grantham in uniform. She was smiling. And in the corner of that photo was a baby in her arms. The man's arrival did not go unnoticed. He walked through the grand gates of Downton Abbey with steady steps and eyes full of silent questions. No invitation, no warning, but he carried himself like he belonged. Carson, ever loyal to order, tried to stop him at the door. "State your business, sir," he said sternly. The man simply replied, "I think I already have in the letter." Upstairs, Mary looked out the window and saw him standing by the fountain. Something in her heart sank. He looked just a little too familiar, not in the face but in the way he stood. The way he looked at the house as if it was once his home. She ordered he be brought in. The stranger introduced himself as Henry Langdon, a schoolteacher from Leeds. His mother, dead for years, had been a maid at Downton during the war. He said she had fallen in love with a man she could never name. All she left him was a photo and a story too painful to tell twice. And now he wanted the truth. Violet's expression didn't change. She sat straight and said, "Young man, even if what you say holds weight, Downton is not a courtroom. And we are not your jury." But Henry stood his ground. He pulled the photo from his coat pocket and placed it gently on the table. "I'm not here to claim land," he said. "I'm here to claim my name." Downstairs, whispers turned to arguments. Mrs. Hughes said it wasn't their place to judge, but Barrow leaned in with a smirk. "Imagine a schoolteacher from Leeds running this place. Lady Mary won't let that happen." Daisy, never afraid to speak her mind, said, "Maybe she should. If it's his by blood?" Anana and Bates stayed quiet, but in their silence was worry. They had lived through scandals before. But this one felt different. It struck at the heart of the family's identity. Meanwhile, Edith slipped away to the library. She wasn't sure why, but something about Henry's story made her stomach twist. She went to the Crawley family records, dusty and untouched, and found an old staff ledger. There it was, Margaret Langdon, housemaid, 1915, 1917, discharged. No reason given. No record of dismissal. No word of where she went. Just ... Dawn back upstairs. Tom Branson invited Henry to stay the night. "At least until we sort things out," he said. Mary disagreed, but was overruled. Robert and Cora were caught in the middle, their marriage strained by the past suddenly coming alive. That night, as Henry stood in one of the guest rooms looking at the walls, he whispered, "So this is the place I should have known." And downstairs, Thomas Barrow pulled out a slip of paper from a hidden drawer. It had a name on it. Not Henry's, but someone else's. Someone who had even more to lose if the truth got out. The drawing room was silent. Even the ticking clock seemed louder than usual. The Crawley family sat in a tight circle. Lord Grantham held the sealed envelope, like it was made of fire. Inside were the DNA results, evidence that could shift everything they knew about themselves. Across the room, Henry Langdon sat straight, but his fingers trembled slightly in his lap. He didn't ask for power, land, or money. He only wanted truth. Mary watched him with sharp eyes, but deep inside, something more painful had started doubt. Finally, Robert opened the letter. His eyes moved across the paper slowly, as if reading every word twice to be sure. Then, a breath deep, heavy, and he read it aloud. "The test confirms a blood connection, but not through Robert Crawley." Silence fell like a hammer. It wasn't Robert. It wasn't Robert at all. The father of Henry Langdon was Patrick Crawley Roberts' long-dead cousin, the man once expected to inherit Downton before drowning on the Titanic. The cousin whose death had changed the Crawleys' entire future. Violet dropped her teacup and it shattered on the floor. Cora blinked in confusion. But Patrick never married. Violet, slowly standing, looked older than ever. Her voice cracked, not with age but with memory. No, but he loved once, a maid, Margaret Langdon. I told him it would ruin him. I had her sent away. I never knew. She was pregnant. Everyone turned to look at her. Mary's lips parted. Stunned. You hid this? I protected the family, Violet said softly. I did what I thought was right. The weight of the truth settled like fog upstairs and down. The house began to buzz with news. Henry was not a stranger now. He was Patrick Crawley's son, which made him by the law of inheritance the next rightful heir to Downton Abbey. Mary stood up, her voice tight with emotion. So we're just supposed to hand it all over to someone we don't even know? But Tom placed a hand on her shoulder. He didn't come to take it, Mary. He came to understand where he came from. Henry looked around at the house one last time. This was never about the land. I wanted to look in the eyes of the people who erased me and see if there was any shame. Violet walked forward slowly and placed a wrinkled hand on his shoulder. There is, she whispered later that evening as rain tapped against the windows. Mary stood alone in the hallway, staring at a portrait of Patrick Crawley. She now saw the resemblance: strong jaw, sharp gaze. The man whose ghost had returned through his son, not to haunt them, but to make them face the truth. Downton would survive. It always did. But something had changed forever, and as the family sat for dinner, one chair remained empty. The one at the head of the table, not out of loss, but out of respect for the scandal that never truly died, and the legacy that finally came home.